in a big area. Okay, but it's not just nitrogen where we can see some of these savings, where we can reduce some of these inputs. There's all these other things as well. When you look at the composition of your soil, by volume it's 45% minerals, but by weight, you know, it's probably 98% of your soil weight is made up of minerals. And so it's all these things that plants need. Now nitrogen comes from the atmosphere, so that's not native as part of your soil, but phosphorus and potassium and calcium and magnesium, iron, manganese, boron, right on down the list. These are the minerals that your soils are made up of. And we just have to unlock them to make them available, because we're spending money putting a lot of these things in, but it's already in your soil. But just like God didn't create plants to pull the nitrogen directly from the atmosphere that goes through the biology, He didn't create these plants with root systems that can directly access all of those minerals in the soil. It has to go through the biology as well. And so when you look at a test, this is what a typical soil test would look like. This is from Ward Labs back in our area. So when we send in a soil sample, they're going to tell us, okay, I've got 23 pounds of nitrogen, I got 35 parts per million of phosphorus, I've got 436 potassium, and so on down the list. This is just showing me what's available to the plant. This is showing me what the plant can see and what the plant can get, but it's a very small percentage of what's actually there. If you want to do something kind of fun, if you have never done this, it's worth doing a few of these total nutrient digest tests. They will tell you what is completely in your soil, whether it's available to a plant or not. And it's really interesting. So this is again, Ward Labs, they're just in our backyard, not very far from us, so we use them a lot. But they analyzed 68 soil samples using this test from Midwest soils, and this is just from 6 inches. So this is how much is in the top 6 inches of your soil, not 4 feet where your roots can grow, 6 inches. 878, and these are in pounds, this is not parts per million. I have 878 pounds of phosphorus in my top 6 inches, 3,700 pounds of potassium, 8,600 pounds of calcium, and right on down the list. We have enough minerals in there to grow crops for thousands of years. We just have to unlock them. We have to get them to a state that is available for plants to use. And again, the way that we do that is through biology. So there are
The third test I'll mention is called total nutrient digest. So I mentioned the Haney test and the other extract tests. They all have one thing in common. They use extracts. So what you're measuring there from a nutrient standpoint is whatever is soluble in whatever extract you use, right? So when you measure potassium with Malic 3, you're measuring how much potassium is soluble in Malic 3. Potassium with H3A, it's how much potassium is soluble in H3A. The total nutrient test says we don't care how soluble it is. We are going to take it all out. We're going to use concentrated nitric acid. We're going to use hydrogen peroxide. The hydrogen peroxide burns up all the organic material, releases all the mineral portion, the nutrients. We're going to strip it all. And think of this like measuring your net worth. So you're saying, okay, I've got these assets and I'm worth $26 million. Great. The extract tests tell you how much cash you have in your front pocket that you can use today. The reason why this is important is because if we put all three of these together, the idea is that your soil, and I can guarantee you your soil has hundreds of pounds of phosphorus in the top 6 inches. Hundreds. Potassium in the low thousands. Calcium, 10,000 plus. Iron, aluminum, I know aluminum scares everybody, but iron, aluminum, 30,000 pounds each. Because that's what soil's made out of, iron, aluminum, and silica. So you have those things there. Matter of fact, Gabe Brown has 20,000 pounds of phosphorus in the top 4 feet. But how do you access it? That's what the microbes do. So the microbes are accessing this. So we use the total nutrient digest to say, hey, this is what you actually have. We use the Haney test to say, this is what you have available today that your crop can use this year. And then we bridge the gap with those microbial tests. Some of those genomics tests look at the function of those organisms. So which organisms can unlock phosphorus, for example, which ones translocate calcium, which ones open up the pathways for sulfur and potassium. And yes, that sulfur, potassium, phosphorus can come from fertilizer sources, but the plant has to exhibit a need in order to send a signal to the microbes. The microbes have to be fed in order to have the energy then to do the work. They have to have a nutrient reserve in the soil in order to mineralize that out. Is that going to completely replace any supplemental fertilizer needs of your crop? Very likely no, especially in high yield grain crop situations, soybeans, etc. But if you make this part of the system more efficient, then you can start to lower the fertilizer gap. Because I refer to fertilizer as gap insurance. So by understanding your total assets and by understanding what you have available, you can evaluate a gap. And then again, like PLFA, total nutrient digest does not change dramatically year to year. So once every 3 to 5 years, you're kind of reevaluating that. And we're using it. Some people will call this a mining assay. So they'll say, well, if I didn't put on as much potassium, am I just mining it all out of the soil? Well, you can measure that with this test. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is say, instead of producers feeling like they're backed into a corner where they have to buy everything every single year, because that gives you no buying power. Commodity price might be terrible, the weather doesn't look great, price of the fertilizer or whatever the input is through the roof. It's not a great time for you to buy, but you might be feeling forced to buy. We want to get you to a point where you can say, not this year. We're going to be okay. We're not going to do it this year. We're going to buy half this year. Next year, oh, we had a good year. We have extra funds. We have a reason. Now we'll go ahead and purchase that P and K to replenish this pool over here, if that makes sense. We're not trying to mine it all out, but you have a lot there that is not normally accounted for. Even in low organic matter soils, even in low CEC soils. You'll be shocked by how many hundreds of pounds of some of these things are in there.